The first light of dawn broke over the city as Collins and I parked the van in a secluded lot. My body ached, my mind was exhausted, but there was something in the air I hadn't felt in months: relief. Victor had been arrested. The evidence we had gathered, the manifests, photos, and recorded deals, left him no way out. The authorities had traced the illegal operations back to him, and his empire of greed crumbled in a matter of hours. I stepped out of the van, breathing in the crisp morning air. For the first time, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The millions that had nearly destroyed me were no longer a curse. They were a lesson, a reminder of the dangers of greed and the price of blind trust. Collins placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did well. Not many survive what you went through." I smiled, a genuine smile this time. I survived. And now, it's time to start over. I used what remained of the money, legally this time, to start a small, honest business. No shortcuts, no lies, no shady deals. Just work, integrity, and the lessons of a near-fatal gamble. Months later, the business was thriving. I had freedom, security, and peace of mind, things no amount of illicit money could have bought. And I finally understood, wealth without trust, morality, or caution was a trap. But survival, courage, and wisdom, those were priceless. I looked out at the city skyline, knowing that this was truly my new beginning. Victor's voice echoed through the warehouse. "You really think you can ruin me?" Before I could react, he lunged toward me. Adrenaline pushed me forward, sprinting past rows of crates. Sirens wailed in the distance. Collins had triggered the police to create a diversion. Shots rang out behind me. I ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding a bullet that splintered a crate. My chest burned, my legs screamed. Every step was a gamble between survival and capture. I burst through a side exit into the night. The black SUVs were gone, but the city streets were chaotic. I weaved through alleys, leaping over trash cans, trying to keep my heart under control. Colin's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Left here, then 2 blocks to the safe house. Move fast." I ran, adrenaline coursing, until I reached a secluded garage. Inside, Collins was waiting with a nondescript van. He handed me a duffel bag filled with cash, evidence, and copies of the manifests I had snapped. Victor's men were close. Too close. I could hear engines. The van roared to life, and we sped into the night, weaving through the streets like shadows. That night, as the city lights blurred past, I realized something profound. The millions that had once promised freedom had almost destroyed me. But now, I had something better: survival, knowledge, and the upper hand against a man who underestimated me. Victor might have built an empire of greed, but I had something he didn't: a second chance. The warehouse loomed like a fortress in the night, cold metal walls reflecting the dim glow of distant streetlights. My heart raced, every instinct screaming danger. Colin's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Move slow. Cameras are limited to this sector, but one wrong step and it's over." I slipped inside through a side door he had scouted. The interior smelled of oil and concrete, the faint hum of machinery masking my footsteps. Then I saw them, Victor's men, armed and alert, moving crates. One of them paused, scanning the shadows. My stomach nodded. I ducked behind a stack of containers, holding my breath. Collins whispered instructions. "Distract the guards on your left. I'll handle the cameras. Grab the manifests. We need proof of every transaction." The plan was precise, but the execution was chaotic. A crate shifted under my weight, a loud thud echoing through the warehouse. 2 guards spun around, weapons drawn. I ran. My adrenaline surged as I ducked behind containers, narrowly avoiding the first shots. Collins was coordinating, guiding me through whispers and hand signals over the earpiece. I reached the main office, grabbing the manifests and snapping photos with a hidden device. Every second felt like an eternity. One wrong move and Victor's men would swarm. Then a voice cut through the tension. "Thought you could outsmart me, huh?" Victor himself had entered, calm but menacing. His eyes locked on me like a predator. The trap was complete, and now, it was no longer just about survival. Agent Collins wasted no time. He had a plan, but it required me to put everything on the line: my freedom, my life, and the last remnants of trust one had left in the world. "We know Victor's operation inside and out," Collins said, spreading maps and documents across a table in a dimly lit safe house. "But he underestimates you. He thinks you're too greedy, too scared to fight back. That's his mistake." I looked at the documents: shipping schedules, offshore accounts, even personal files on key members of his crew. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Collins continued, "Your role is simple: infiltrate his next deal, gather proof, and destabilize his network from within. You succeed, and Victor goes down. You fail." He didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need him to. We spent days planning every detail: routes, disguises, backup plans. I learned to move like a ghost, avoiding surveillance, blending into crowds, memorizing escape routes. My apartment was stripped bare of anything traceable. My identity became fluid. Then came the moment of truth, the next shipment. A container loaded with millions in cash and illegal goods. Victor didn't know I was coming. Collins and I set our trap. As I approached the warehouse, heart pounding, I felt the weight of every choice I had made: the briefcase, the greed, the betrayal. Everything had led me here. For the first time, I wasn't just running. I was fighting. The train yard was silent, except for the distant hum of passing city traffic. Mist curled around the old locomotives, creating ghostly shapes. Every step I took echoed loudly, making me jump at my own shadow. Then I saw him. The gray-suited stranger, leaning casually against a rusted container. His face was partially hidden, but his posture screamed authority. "You came," he said calmly. "Good. But there's little time." Before I could ask questions, headlights cut through the fog. Two black SUVs rolled into the yard, engines silent, tires crunching over gravel. My heart skipped. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a trap. "They're after you," the man continued. "Victor set this up. You think he helped you? He made sure you'd take the fall first." I froze. Victor, the man I trusted, the man who promised freedom, had already betrayed me. The gray-suited man gestured. "Move! Quick! Follow me!" I ran, adrenaline pumping, as shadows shifted around the containers. The SUVs followed, their headlights scanning like searchlights. Every step felt like a gamble with death. By the time we reached an abandoned train car on the far side of the yard, I was gasping. The man finally turned, revealing a face I didn't recognize. "My name is Agent Collins," he said. "And if you want to survive Victor's empire, you need to trust me, completely." I had no choice. Trust was all I had left. The walls were closing in on me. Everywhere I turned, I saw signs: black SUVs parked too long outside my building, strange men lingering in the lobby, my phone lighting up with unknown numbers. I needed a way out. Fast. I liquidated what I could: a luxury car, a set of watches, even the penthouse artwork Victor had gifted me. Cash was safer now than any digital trace. I stuffed it into a duffel bag and decided to disappear before the storm hit. But disappearing isn't easy when you've been living large. My face had been in magazines, my name whispered in business circles. People recognized me. Even the bartender at a dingy downtown club smirked when he saw me. "You're the guy from the news, aren't you? Must be rough, falling from the top." That night, while I planned my escape, the gray-suited stranger called. His voice was low and urgent. "They're coming for you. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. You have one chance. Meet me at the old train yard. Midnight." Every instinct screamed trap. But staying put was worse. As I zipped the duffel bag, I noticed a shadow move outside my window. Someone was watching. My pulse thundered. I grabbed the bag, slipped out the back stairwell, and disappeared into the city. I had no idea who I could trust anymore, the law, Victor, or the mysterious man pulling strings from the shadows. But I knew one thing: if I didn't move now, I'd never move again. I couldn't sleep after what I saw in the warehouse. Every shadow in my penthouse felt like it was watching me. Every knock at the door made my chest tighten. Then it started. A stranger in a gray suit stopped me outside the bank. He flashed a badge too quickly for me to read, then slipped a card into my pocket. "Call me before it's too late," he whispered, and disappeared into the crowd. That night, I found a tiny black device hidden under the dashboard of my car. A tracker. Who put it there, the police or Victor's men? My paranoia was eating me alive. I tried calling Victor, but he brushed me off with his usual smooth confidence. "You're overthinking again. Enjoy the money. You wanted millions, didn't you? Now act like you deserve them." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening behind my back. The next morning, the news hit like a hammer. A massive federal investigation had been launched into money laundering and arms smuggling at the port. Cameras showed crates eerily similar to the ones I'd seen. And then, my name popped up in the ticker at the bottom of the screen. I froze. The success I had built wasn't just collapsing. It was dragging me down with it. I realized in that moment, it wasn't Victor's empire at risk. It was me. I was the perfect scapegoat. The man who thought he had beaten the system was about to find himself caged inside it. At first, everything looked perfect. Victor's operation moved like a well-oiled machine. Shipping containers came in and out of the port, paperwork was immaculate, and money flowed faster than I could process. Within weeks, my bank accounts had ballooned. It was the kind of success that felt untouchable, like I had finally outsmarted everyone, the cops, the men in the SUV, even fate itself. I bought myself a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At night, I'd sip expensive whiskey and tell myself I had won. That all the paranoia, the threats, the sleepless nights, they were just stepping stones to this victory. But deep down, I knew it was too clean. Too smooth. One evening I decided to drop by the warehouse where some of Victor's containers were being processed. What I saw made my stomach twist. It wasn't electronics or furniture like the invoices claimed. Behind the neat stacks of boxes were crates stuffed with things no one wanted to be caught moving. Weapons, counterfeit bills, and rumors whispered by the workers suggested worse. I confronted Victor about it the next day. His smile never faltered. "Relax," he said smoothly. "Everything's under control. You wanted freedom, didn't you? Freedom costs. You don't get to be a millionaire by playing small." I laughed nervously, pretending to agree, but my hands were sweating. Because now I understood, I wasn't part of a business deal. I was part of a crime syndicate. And whether I wanted it or not, my name was already on every paper trail. I hadn't escaped anything. I had walked straight into a cage. They always say greed blinds you. And in that moment, I was completely blind. A man named Victor came into the picture. He was slick, polished, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and have everyone's attention without even trying. Word on the street was that Victor specialized in making dirty money clean. If anyone could take my cursed cash and turn it into something untouchable, it was him. We met in a rooftop bar, the kind where a single drink costs more than I used to make in a day. Victor leaned across the table, his smile too perfect. "You want freedom?" he asked. "You want the heat off you? Then you need to think bigger. One good play, and you disappear into the sunset." His pitch was simple, a massive import-export scheme. On paper, it looked legal. Behind the scenes, it was laced with risks I didn't want to think about. But the numbers, they were intoxicating. If it worked, my millions would triple, maybe more. Enough to buy a new identity, a life anywhere in the world. Against every instinct screaming at me to walk away, I said yes. The night I signed the papers, I felt a rush, the same one gamblers must feel when they push all their chips onto one number. Except this wasn't a casino. This was life and death. But even then, cracks were already forming. Victor's smile was too smooth, his promises too perfect. I noticed how he never left his phone unattended, how his eyes flickered whenever I asked about details. It didn't matter. I had already stepped off the cliff. Now, all I could do was pray the parachute would open before I hit the ground. What I didn't know was that Victor wasn't just a businessman. He was a trigger, one that would unleash everything I had been trying to outrun. The property deal had made me cocky. My bank account no longer looked like a working man's. It looked like something out of a Wall Street fantasy. I bought a better car, moved into a high-rise apartment, and for the first time in my life, I walked into luxury stores without checking price tags. But success is loud. And in my case, it was deafening. I noticed it first in the questions. My neighbors in the new building asked what I did for a living. A few of my old friends suddenly wanted to catch up. Even the doorman gave me that look, the kind that said he knew I didn't belong here. And then came the cops. One afternoon, as I was sipping overpriced coffee on my balcony, I spotted two men in plain suits across the street, parked in an old sedan. They weren't trying to be discreet, they wanted me to know I was being watched. My phone rang again. Same block number. This time, a voice. "You're moving too fast. Do you want the cops to take it all before we do?" The message was clear. I wasn't just being watched by them anymore. The police were circling, and the men in the black SUV were getting restless. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat staring at the briefcase, still half full of cash, and realized something terrifying. The money wasn't saving me. It was the very thing pulling the noose tighter around my neck. And yet, I couldn't let it go. I told myself one last deal. Just one more move, and I'd vanish before anyone could touch me. I didn't know it then, but that one last deal would be the trap that sealed my fate. After that encounter outside the diner, sleep became a luxury. Every creak in my apartment sounded like footsteps. Every car engine outside my window felt like it was waiting for me to slip up. But instead of running scared, my mind did something dangerous. It began to calculate. What if I could use this money not just to survive, but to escape their grip entirely? What if I invested it into something so legitimate, so untouchable, that even they couldn't claw it back? I started researching obsessively. Real estate. Crypto. Shell companies. For weeks, I barely ate or left my apartment. My phone buzzed constantly with unknown numbers, and each time I ignored them, my chest tightened. Then came the breaking point. One night I got a text message from an unknown number. "We're watching. Don't get clever." My blood ran cold. But in that same moment, something inside me snapped. If they were watching, then fine, let them watch. I'd build something so fast, so unstoppable, that even they wouldn't dare take it back. I took the briefcase and poured nearly half into a risky investment, a property deal pitched by a man who swore it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It felt reckless, but I told myself fortune favors the bold. For a short time, it worked. The property flipped fast, and within months, I had doubled the money. The numbers in my accounts no longer looked like survival, they looked like empire. But every empire has enemies. And mine were already circling. It didn't take long before they made their move. I was leaving a late-night diner when two men in leather jackets stepped out of that black SUV I had been seeing. They weren't asking questions, they were making statements. "Enjoying the cash?" one of them said with a smirk. My throat went dry. My first instinct was to run, but the taller one grabbed my shoulder with a grip like steel. "You've got something that isn't yours," he whispered. "And if you don't start playing by the rules, you won't be around long enough to spend it." They didn't hit me. They didn't need to. Their silence, their cold eyes, it was worse than any punch. As they drove away, I realized I wasn't in control at all. I wasn't rich, I wasn't free. I was owned. And yet, instead of returning the money or cutting ties, I convinced myself I could outsmart them. That maybe I could even turn this into an opportunity. It was the biggest lie I ever told myself. At first, life was intoxicating. I paid off my debts in one sweep, bought expensive clothes, and even treated myself to a car I never dreamed I'd own. People noticed, friends, neighbors, even strangers. But money has a way of drawing attention, and not all of it is welcome. A week after the briefcase arrived, I started noticing the same black SUV parked near my apartment. At first, I brushed it off as coincidence. But then it showed up outside the bank, at the grocery store, even when I drove across town. One night, I came home and found my front door slightly open. My heart nearly stopped. I crept inside. Nothing seemed stolen, but the briefcase had been moved. Someone had been there. That's when it hit me. This wasn't my money. I was just a pawn holding it. And pawns are disposable. Still, instead of walking away, I clutched tighter. I thought, if I play smart, I can beat them at their own game. That arrogance would be my undoing. That night, after the handshake and a few too many drinks, he handed me a black briefcase. I thought it was a joke until I opened it in my apartment. Inside, stacks of crisp $100 bills, more money than I had ever seen in my life. My hands trembled as I touched it. The smell of new cash filled the room. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a failure. I told myself it was just a loan. That I'd use it to fix my life, pay off debts, maybe even start a small business. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. My old friend didn't hand out millions just because he liked me. And yet, greed overpowered common sense. The next morning, I walked to the bank like a king. People on the street seemed smaller, weaker. Suddenly, I was someone. I didn't know then that every dollar in that briefcase was marked, and that my life had just been signed away. I never thought my life would spiral into something out of a crime drama. Just a year ago, I was an ordinary guy struggling to pay rent, living paycheck to paycheck, barely keeping food on the table. Then, suddenly, money showed up in my life. Not just a little, millions. It came fast, like a wave crashing into a broken dam. And at first, it felt like salvation. A second chance. But here's the thing no one tells you about easy money: it always comes with strings attached. Sometimes, those strings turn into chains. I can still remember the exact moment it started, a late-night meeting with an old acquaintance I hadn't seen in years. He came with a smile, a drink, and a business opportunity. That sounded like the ticket out of my miserable life. I said yes. And from that moment, I had no idea I had just stepped onto a road that would eventually lead me behind bars.